the waiting room issue that we had last week, so I'm glad to see you on. We'll just get started in a couple of minutes. I'm just gonna wait to see who's gonna pop up. Good to see you all.
Yeah. I don't know what's happened to my camera though.
Oh yeah, where'd you go?
I don't know. I'm still here.
Well, I see your picture, so that's good.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. That Zoom does that sometimes. I've had some problems in the past.
Yeah.
Some people Zoom I have no problems with, and other people Zoom trouble. So
Weird. So what happens if you turn off the video and then turn it back on?
can try that. And hang on. That's probably the problem. There we are. How's that?
Yeah. Looks good. I can see your smile now. Well, you had a smile in your picture, but now you're moving. So that's good. And now we see Lucy.
Yeah.
Gina. So we've got Lucy's here in New Zealand, pretty close to me. Sheena she's Canadian in the Philippines. Christine and Victor are in Australia. We're waiting a couple of people from the States. I'm actually just going to get started because I've got, yeah, I want to make sure I'm on time now. So I'm just going to go ahead and mute you guys out really quick. How are you doing, Lucy? Really quick.
Good, thank you. I made it today.
Yay! Good to see you. I'll just mute all of you guys right now. And yeah, well, let's get started. So this is, hey everyone, Regina here from Courageously Free. This is part 2 of the Craft Clever Content workshop series, and it's really great to see all of you. All of you are from all over. We've got some people here in Asia, in the States, in Australia. Probably not Europe. I have someone who wanted to come from Ireland, but she's sleeping right now, so it's probably 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm just going to share my screen. So let me know if you guys can see that. Give me maybe a thumbs up. Okay, cool. Got a thumbs up from Christine. And you guys saw this last time. You know, what if digital sustainability is easier than you expected? I just coined that word, digital sustainability, and I know that sustainability is kind of like one of those buzzwords going on these days. But I mean, it's kind of true, because a lot of times we'll see people come and go, businesses, marketers, you know, trying to get online, and they'll focus on putting that right post up. They'll focus on, you know, the right ad, the right post, you know, on whether it's on their blog or social media. But I'm challenging you guys to think a bit differently. I'm thinking about, well, how can you create this legacy online with your brand or your business? You know, whether you are a business or whether you're an influencer. And there is a lot to it, especially if you're not. If the whole tech thing really kind of scares you. And so I'm going to talk about, you know, one of my intentions with doing this whole series for you guys. And so hopefully it'll be, you know, a good contribution to you guys. Yeah. So I sent you the replay. If you're here, I would have sent you the replay of the Part 1 Craft Clever Content workshop. And so I'm just going to give you, if I can just get out of here really quick. So after each, it's so tricky having all of these things here. After each workshop, what I'm doing is I'm just sending you the replay, which is just a basic description with the topics that we've talked about with the replay. And also the slides I'm going to keep in the Facebook group that I've started, just so that you can get access to that. And then each week I'm going to have an assignment. And today I'm going to cover what what your assignment is going to be after this session. Last one, if you guys ended up doing it, the assignment was really pretty simple. It was, what are you expecting from me and for this workshop series, and what can I expect from you? And you're welcome to, let me know, pop that in the chat, or you don't have to. Really, my expectation from you guys is to at least try to follow as much as you can, and know that because there's so much information, you'll get the chance to go back and revisit some of it. But also, I don't expect you to take in all of the information. The purpose of this webinar is really just to give you an idea of what it really means to craft clever content and to start thinking a bit differently, start creating systems rather than just thinking of the one-off post. Because what you're going to do is you're going to build a foundation. And some of you here already really have a strong foundation with another group that we're in, about, talking about, what it is you do, what your core values are, some of the stories that you guys have created. And what I'm actually going to do with that is take some of those stories and show you, really now is really just to give you an idea of how you can apply that to whatever product or service that that you are selling. The 5-part series is really just an overview. It's just a touch of, the 3 words that I'm going to talk about later on. And then I'm thinking that after that, starting early next year, is I'm actually going to start going deep into some of these concepts and even get into some of the how-tos. So for example, last week, Christine was saying, I have my stories and they're all well and great. I have my content from the workshops that I used to do, but I just want to know how to blog. I just want to know how to put that post up. And so I want to help you guys do that as well. But before we get to that point, it's really building that foundation. And so what you can expect from me is I'll show up for these 5 workshops, but also if you guys have any questions from what I've talked about, if you have any questions from, other things that you've learned, feel free to ask me. I'm going to talk about another VIP group that I'm trying to set up, and you'll hear about that later on, where, we'll actually be able to have regular Zoom calls, but it'll be a different setting rather than me actually being the teacher. It'll be kind of a more collaborative environment, because all of this stuff it's all well and good if you learn it. Doing it is a totally different thing, but at the same time, sometimes it's scary doing the doing, and having a group that can, keep each other accountable, or at least talk things through with what they're doing is really important as well. It's just kind of building that community, because it's kind of lonely. And if you guys are here, you'll all be on the same page. So let me go back to my slides. Cool. And so I was talking about the assignment earlier. Today's assignment is going to be this worksheet that I'm going to give you. So if I don't give you the link at the end of this session, you'll be getting it in your email, or I'll send it to you guys. So the main idea of this session is we're going to end up talking about how to come up with your content marketing mission. I'm not going to talk about that right this second. We're just going to go over just a review from last week. I talked a bit about expectations. Last week we talked about some challenges, and so if you didn't get to voice your challenges last week, or if you did, just think about what they are right now. And if you wanted to let me know, or let us know what challenges you have, feel free to unmute yourself, because someone else on here, someone else watching this, whether it's now or later on, is going to think, oh yeah, actually, I have the same challenges. So what challenges do you have? And it's okay if you don't come out, but it'd be nice to hear your voice.
Yeah. I find my challenge is that I have just so much.
And what do you mean by so much?
I've got so much information that I want to put out there, and it's drawing that line between what do you give away for free and what do you keep back. And
yeah.
And then, and also just what do you call it? Being continuous and so congruent. So that making sure that I've got that content for that. So like I've got my Facebook timeline, and so there with my friends. So I use that for putting marketing. But on one of my Facebook pages, which is I just use my name, the only content, I don't try to sell anything there, but it's just motivation, helping. So I have the two complete different, separate
pages. Yeah. And so when you're talking about continuous, being continuous and congruence, are those two words to you synonymous, or what meanings do they have to you? Like, what does it mean to be continuous, and what does it mean to be congruent?
Well, I guess not being continuous mean not being tangent, so that I don't go off track. So that I'm doing at the moment a lot of, say, social marketing. Then I don't want to go off into how to drive a truck.
Yeah. Do you find yourself doing that in your content now, and like your video?
No, not much.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning, especially, if a lot of this is new to you, you're just gonna do that. And I think when you're more conscious of that, and that's when you're gonna start paring it down, and then also trying to think of the bigger picture. Which, if you've gone to part one, you'll remember. Well, I'll show you in a second, but you'll remember the customer journey, and that will kind of keep you. In your mind, it'll keep you in line a bit. So, just thinking, hold on, let me just show you. Well, and as far as congruence, where's the congruency? What does that mean to you?
Congruent just means that you're on the same topic, obviously, as your customers. That if you're, like at the moment, I'm doing a lot of social media type items, that they're the customers that you're looking for. That the area to build their business. So I'm always looking for a business customer, and that's what I so my material's got to be congruent with that, so that it's always the same. It's marketing. So the bottom line is marketing. Yeah. So that even though I've got different avenues that I can go off into, as you know, it still comes back to marketing. Yeah. So that's what I call like congruent.
Cool. Thank you for sharing.
That's all right. Cool.
And I'm hoping that some of this will at least give you an idea of where you can find more information, and kind of what's going through my brain, and from my experiences. Because what I teach, and really anyone that you learn for what they will teach, isn't necessarily going to be exactly what you're going to do, but you can pick and choose what works for you and what doesn't. So thanks for sharing. Anyone else want to share? Cool. I'll just move on to the next one. So some of you know me, some of you might not know me all that well, but my husband and I, we live in New Zealand, and I was working in the entertainment industry. I moved to New Zealand to work on Avatar, and worked on a few blockbuster films since then, and I was burning out. So in 2013, I started working online. I wanted to find another way of generating income. And the first, it took me, maybe a couple of months to get everything set up. And the first time I got $6,000 in my bank account, I was like, there's kind of something to this here. And mind you, my results aren't typical. And I actually worked to get, I got the $6,000 on one night, but it was a culmination of steps before that to get to that point. So when people say, I got a 10-figure month or whatever from their products and their services, there's a whole setup involved with that. So I could have worked, 1,000 hours to get to that point. But it's really just being efficient. So We ended up traveling for 3 years around the world. And then we came back to New Zealand to have our baby. And so, like I say, I talk about content a lot and content marketing and content creation, and people are just like, well, what does that actually mean? Because a lot of people hear, you know, social media strategies, you know, yeah, social media, this, that, blog post. Content is the basis of how you're going to get your message out. So whether you have content in a Facebook ad or Google PPC, whatever, all that juice is your content. So really knowing what that content is so important. And so this is why I encourage you to think more of systems thinking rather than the one-off posts, because I do one-off posts still, and I do schedule some posts. But if I do those one-off posts, it's still relevant, and I already have a foundation so that it's going to be, whatever I talk about is going to be around content and content marketing and using it to create the digital sustainability. That's all I'm ever really going to talk about, at least with this brand. I have another blog, but that's for travel and family, so that's different. So I mean, if social media strategy isn't enough to be digitally sustainable, you know, what is? Because the reality is there's so much noise in the whole digital space, trying to have people differentiate, trying to figure out how you are different than the next person is super, super key. But it's also, you know, if you think about it, it's actually super simple, because you're quite different than everyone else. And I'll get into that in a second. We saw this last week, and we tend to be, our brains tend to look like what's on the left. So content is blog post, it's a podcast, it's a video, it's a workshop series, it's a membership site, it could be a live workshop, whatever it is. It could be, you know, chat bots, whatever that is. We all have it in between our ears. We all know our content really, really well inside and out, and that's why we're in our business. I know Christine is a good example of that, and Lucy knows her craft really well, and I'm going to talk about her in a second. And you know, Jacinta, she's a designer, interior designer in Australia. She knows her content really well. Sheena is a podcaster in the Philippines, and she knows everything in between her ears. Now, the issue is, how do you actually organize that and get to a point where you're kind of on the right side? And it's really just a process over time. Yeah, Lucy's, you're nodding your head, you know. Yeah.
I am here now, Regina. I thought it was 10 a.m. our time.
Oh, you know, the time changed here.
Sorry.
Yeah, the time changed here, so thanks for showing up. Good to see you here. All right. And so I talked about this last week as well, and this is part of your customer journey. And each of these steps are steps in your customer journey, meaning once they see your post, once they're aware of a post, whether it's organic, whether they see a paid ad that you've put out, whether you already have a list and you've done a retargeting ad, which basically means if you have a list of customers and you've used that list and fed it into Google or Facebook to show your ad, they see the post. Then when they see your post and they're like, that's quite interesting, well, that's when you're attracting them and you're getting their interest. And so maybe that post was about, hey, I've got a free ebook for you, or here's a video series about da-da-da-da-da. Maybe there's an infographic of, you know, what you're doing that's really interesting, that they're like, oh, I just want to see the statistics for this. Once they obtain that, they're ready to obtain that, my brain just went blank, lead magnet. That's an example of a lead magnet, like an ebook, a free ebook. They'll put their name in a form and they'll click on submit, and they're going to get an email from you. And so once you're on their email list, that's when you can start giving more value, because they've taken that action to get into your list. And so that'll give you the chance for them to see you, you know, 6 or 7 times, 8 times, 9 times. And we're going to talk a little bit about spam, not probably not today, but maybe on the next workshop. And so when you're giving them value, this is when they're trying to figure out, okay, well, is this stuff actually interesting and relevant to me? Maybe it is. And then acquire is when they actually purchase your product, whether it's online or they walk into your shop and it's in person. And then, of course, even after they buy your product or service, or buy your service, you don't want to leave them alone. So you still want to check in and say, hey, how are you doing? How's the product going? Here are 3 different ways that you can use that. And let me give an example. I don't have it. Let me see. I was going to show you some of your Kawa bombs, Lucy, but I think it's hidden somewhere. So, for example, Lucy here, she does a midi massage, which is the traditional indigenous style here in New Zealand. And she also sells products that have kawa in it, which has these amazing healing properties. And so, I have some of her products, and one of them is the ligament and tendon cream, right? And so one of the things that she said to me is that you could still put it on like with sore muscles or whatever. I'm pretty sure you told me that, because I did it last night and I woke up feeling really great, so stuff like that can be said not only in person but in emails. Hey, you purchased the ligament and tendon product, and this is how I normally use it, but here's a little secret. I've actually used it on my muscles after a really hard workout, after not working out for 3 months. That's just an example, something that you can say to people, giving them ideas of how they can use the product, and saying, and in fact, if your muscles actually hurt quite a bit, here's another product, specific to that ailment, and come in and I can help you figure out how to use it, and I'll give you a massage or something. I don't know. You get the idea. And so you just want to check in with people to make sure that they're still on your radar. And I'm sure that some of you do that as well already anyway. But that's kind of the whole process. It doesn't really stop there. It'll happen over and over again. And so that customer journey, and whatever the person, your audience sees, whether it's that ad, whether it's that email, whether it's that podcast, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I'll get into that in a second. But a lot of it really comes down to, well, you can sell a donut. And if you're marketing to anyone and everyone, how do you know what the person actually wants, wants to buy? You can have a whole bunch of shoes, but not everybody's going to wear stiletto heels to work, right? So knowing, whether you're going to have a cute, funny little donut, whether you're really elegant, whether you just want a plain donut, or whether you're quite different and you just want a handmade donut hole. Knowing your customer is so, so important. And you already know that, but it's not even just that. It's knowing your customer and understanding how they ingest information, where they go to find that information, how often they would want to see your face, or it doesn't have to be your face. It could be a blog post, could be an email. So just knowing those nitty-gritty details is really, really important on how you're going to talk with them. And earlier, Victor had talked about being congruent and continuous. And he's noticed that, okay, maybe sometimes there are, he does go off track. And how do you stay focused? And it's one part of that equation is knowing that person to a T and always talking to that one person. Even if your product works really well for everyone in the world or 10 million people, you're still going to want to talk to that specific person, because that way your messages can be very, very congruent, very, very targeted. And you'll be able to dig deeper into their emotions, so that you can create that connection. And I think that's the hardest thing with being online and being in the digital space, is that, you know, I can go down the street and go see Lucy and have a conversation with her and give her a high five and a hug or something. But when you're sending out emails, how do you get that connection? And it's really understanding who the person is. And then last week I talked about this as well. As I had a friend who's a home stylist, and she had this book that she created on the left 12 years ago. But she wanted me to redo it, and when I saw her old book, I'm like, the content inside is great, and I still used the words that she wrote because they're amazing. But when I saw the layout and saw, you know, the way the photos were arranged, I was just thinking that this doesn't represent her, because I think she's a very dynamic person. She's very kind of not necessarily posh, but she just loves luxury items, and I wanted to display it in a way that would represent her personality. And so I also talked about focusing on one last week, and I won't get into this into detail, but it's really just one goal, and it's that business goal. It's that one audience and that one voice. And that one voice is kind of was an interesting tip for one of the ladies that was in one of my workshops here in Napier in New Zealand. She runs a gym here, and there were a few of them posting on social media on the business, and she thought that hit her, that kind of hit her and made her realize, okay, well, how do we actually create that one voice? And the example that I used last week was my husband Mike and I are two very different people. And when we were writing emails to our list, I tend to be a bit fluffy and give more information, and he's straight to the point, very much the salesman, you know, very much a salesman. And sometimes his personality doesn't work for people, and sometimes mine doesn't. And because we ended up writing to the same group of people, both of us, it confused people. And we started getting emails back saying, you know, take me off your list. I didn't sign up for this. And, why are you talking to me like this, and all that kind of stuff. This is a little spotlight moment for Lucy here, and then the lady that owns the gym, Bay City Gym. Her name is Chrissy. Because I've worked with them, I've worked with Lucy pretty closely, and then and Chrissy, she's been to my workshop, and I've had a couple of conversations with her, and I think there were some interesting conversations that came out of what we talked about. And I thank you, Lucy and Christy, for letting me put you guys in the spotlight. So like I said earlier, Lucy has natural remedies for many, many different ailments. I think one of her biggest demographic is senior citizens, but she also works with laborers. She works with babies. So really, her products help everybody for pretty much anything. It could probably, bring people from the dead or something, but but when you're going back to having one audience, one person that you're talking to, it's quite hard, because you know that your product actually does serve people and serve people well. And what we kind of narrowed it down to a bit was that, well, the people that she was helping have gone through Western medicine and still don't feel completely satisfied. And part of that is because, Western medicine doesn't take the whole person into account, in every aspect of their life, and, their spiritual life as well. And that's one thing that she does, and she's had really phenomenal results. And so the real question was, okay, we know that now, so how can we talk to that person on her Facebook page or on her blog? And we're putting some stories together as well. And so, yeah, and we're still kind of going through that process, but I just wanted to ask you, Lucy, if you do want to come out, you don't have to, but how do you feel, I guess, after we've kind of gone through that part of the process, versus like, right before, like, do you feel like you've changed changed a few things with the way you post in terms of like who you're actually talking to?
Yes, I do feel like I have changed a little from like when I first started. It was very confusing in trying to sell my product. So I was very the norm and what I'm used to seeing is people just selling, you know, that Sally kind of brain. And now it's changed to more like still trying to sell, but not trying so hard to sell. If that makes sense. And I have tried to tweak my posts and things to not be so, hey, come and buy my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the first natural reaction. And then the thing is that you know that people don't actually buy your product. I mean, it helps them, but it's them getting to know you.
Yes.
You know, and the knowledge that you have, and that Kawakawa experience, Kawakawa Care NZ experience that we have, you know, from, you know, walking into your shop. That, you know, when it's a cold day, you walk in and there's the heat pump is on and there's music playing in the background. There's, you know, essential oils in the air, and in the products that you use for your massage. And that's, you know, like how can you capture that in your online experience? And a lot of it is just through stories. Through stories, you know, behind the scenes information that other people won't know. You know, so many things. And with Chrissy, she runs Bay City Gym, and she's the one that had that aha moment where she's like, oh, maybe I need to think about, you know, this, and that. And so I actually didn't realize that it hit her that hard because, well, we didn't really talk about it, but I actually noticed it on her posts. So the following week, I started looking at the post that she was putting up, and I was like, I like what you're putting up. Like, it's a lot more personable. And she started writing stories about the people that work with her. This particular post here was a How-To Tuesday, showing the correct positioning for, you know, the machines for certain exercises. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, because I know that sometimes people do it wrong. I know I've done it wrong. So it's interesting tidbits like that. Keeping that in mind, Lucy, I know that you have themes for each of the days. Monday through Friday, I think, yeah, or Tuesday through Friday, I don't remember. And they're actually quite clever. So if you can figure out a way to utilize that and put that onto your Facebook page or any of your posts, I'm curious to see how that will change over time too. They're pretty clever. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously my biggest thing is just focus on one goal, not a one-off post. And you guys saw this iceberg here. How many of you recognize the whole iceberg and have seen that with strategic strategies and systems thinking? I pretty much almost guarantee that all of you, if not most of you, have seen this in some sort of a diagram or another. And it actually isn't any different at all to this, because it just isn't. People just see so little of what you have. I think Christine put out some content a couple weeks ago in a private Facebook group, and it was just, you know, like a one-pager. She talked about it for a few minutes, but I guarantee that one-pager is from years and years of learning and experimenting and all that stuff. Years, decades even, you know. But then we just saw a one-pager, and that's only a snippet of what you know. So a lot of it does come into the planning and the strategy. Yeah, so that's what they see, obviously. And then this is everything else. And everything else is the planning, the creating the meaningful content. It's the creating the systems, it's the doing, it's the distribution, the measuring and adjusting. And if you're seeing this list, it's just such a short list compared to what there is available. And maybe your brain is hurting right now, but let's ease that, because we want to start thinking in systems and start thinking about chunking things down, because you see all of these words here and you're like, oh God, yeah, that's so true, but how the heck do I do that? And so kind of chunking that down and having you think of this iceberg in this process, and actually that kind of would probably span the whole iceberg, is really kind of condensed in these 3 words, all those words that you saw earlier, which is collect, curate, and connect. And collecting really is creating that purpose for your content, collecting that information to create your content mission of why you're actually doing this. And I have to be really honest, and I'm going to see how I can integrate kind of some other stuff with this whole process, because I'm actually starting at a point where I'm presuming that you already know your core values. I'm presuming that you already know your personal vision and your business vision and the vision for your audience. And so I think in the future, I'm just actually gonna have to create that foundation there. But this collecting is really just making a purpose for your content, so that, yeah, there's a reason for your content. And then curate, I'm gonna go over next week, which is obviously creating the content, but really trying to dial into the exact person that you're talking to, and taking your story and writing it to that specific person. So on the next workshop session, we're going to talk about the persona, and I'm going to give you a whole list of questions to answer about that specific person. And then we'll start talking a bit about story and how you can create that content to fit that person. Connecting is really obviously taking that story and putting it out and distributing it, whether it's on your blog, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, so that you can connect with that person. And just keep in mind too, that even though you put that post on your blog or on Facebook, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to see it. And so at some point, once you build your foundation, we'll start talking about how to actually drive traffic to there. Because it's like driving out to the middle of the forest or the desert and having a shopping mall in the middle of nowhere. You'll never know where it is unless you actually see the sign to tell you we're over here. And just as a live example, I'm sorry I'm picking on you, Lucy. I'm not really picking on you, but Lucy, she had a cute little sign on the outside of her store that did tell people that she was there. And she noticed that once she put up that huge, massive sign with her logo and her brand on the front, man, she started getting more foot traffic, you know? And so it just makes a difference. And it's like, well, how do you do that in the digital space as well? So today we're going to be talking about collect, and I'm quite mindful of your time, and I'm going to breeze through this, partly because I actually have another video that'll cover this with a worksheet that I was talking about earlier. So I just wanted to expose it to you so that you know what it is, so that when you look at it again and hear it in a different way, it might make a little more sense. So in this session, I really wanted to help you understand that with collecting, what you're really doing is you're collecting ideas and info based on your company vision, mission, and business targets. And I think this would be good for Victor, well, all of you really, but I know Victor talked about congruency and being continuous. Once you have these specific reasons why you're creating your content, then you can make it more meaningful and stay on track. I'm going to give you a live example with this whole workshop series too, because you guys are in it now. So you might, when you see my posts and when I talk to you, you'll kind of see certain patterns, or you might begin to understand why I do things a certain way. And so hopefully that will help you with your own content as well. And I know that every business is different, but all the systems and things that you do kind of line up a bit. So what the intention really of this particular session is, and your assignment is to eventually come up with your content mission. And so that's really creating a content mission, the reason why you're creating content, and really your point of difference. And determining where you are right now so that you can start building your foundation. So it's like what we talked about, our challenges. Like, what's your challenge? Okay, well, once you know what your challenge is, then you can work from there and understand what to do next. and understanding your business goals. And we talked a bit about this last week, and it's really thinking of specific goals and how to think of topics around that goal. For example, I'm going to pick on you again, Lucy. For example, Lucy does fortnightly sessions to teaching people how to do, midi massage, right? And so her, maybe one of her business goals could be, or could have been before, maybe when she starts a new session is, well, I want to have my business goal is to have 4 people for the next workshop in January. That would be a specific business goal. Or maybe you can aim for 5, because maybe not all of them will show up. And also optimizing your current content. Like I said, all your content is in between your ears. And I know that Christine, Victor, and Jacinta, like even Lucy, but other people watching this, you've gone through so many stories and you already have that content. Now the key is, well, how do you optimize that for your audience to really take that in? And we talked over the past week, some of us have talked about repurposing old content. Sometimes the way you've written your old content isn't necessarily relevant, but you still want to talk about it. So how can you rewrite it in a way that will achieve that specific business goal? And this is what I showed you guys earlier, and this is what the worksheet that you're going to get. And those 9 boxes there, aim to work on those 9 boxes first before you get to your content mission, because those 9 boxes are what's going to build a content mission. I have to be honest, I wrote mine down and I meant to put it in this slide. I don't remember it offhand, but I'll wing it. So the first thing is understanding your target audience. And if you're marketing to everybody, you're not really marketing to anybody. So you want to know that specific person, because even if it's a smaller percentage of the bigger whole, you'll be able to help that person even more. If you have multiple people in your audience, just focus on one for now, because once you're successful helping that specific person, then you can move on to the next. So, my demographic would be a 35-year-old Filipino or Asian woman who's a career woman, but this is for my podcast, by the way, but she listens to my podcast in the car on the way to work and on the way home. Maybe she's trying to build an online business on the side, or trying to find a way of living a different life rather than just having to go to work every single day, and just she just kind of wants to go against the grain because she's stressed out. That's the specific person that I target, at least with my podcast. And I'm talking to that person. And incidentally, she kind of sort of looks like me in a way, because I'm thinking of myself. So even getting, a picture and even putting a name to this person, I have three personas. Paula, Teresa, and the third one. Anyways, and they're all very specific people. And so the outcome for my audience, whether it's on this workshop or whether it's in the blog post that I write, is for you guys to understand, or for you guys to be able to create your content donut. And I know you don't understand what that means at all, but if you think about it, when you're baking a donut, right, and it's just the 4 pictures of those donuts earlier, if you're thinking, okay, well, I actually want to sell a donut, you're not really just selling a donut. You have to think, okay, well, who is my audience? What do they like? What are the right ingredients for that particular donut so that they'll actually eat it? If someone is vegan, they're not going to want to eat a normal donut. They'll probably want some sort of like a raw vegan donut. So what are the specific ingredients that you need to create that raw vegan donut so that person can eat it? And so it's very similar to being able to create this content, the content marketing strategy. What's the outcome that you want from that person? And really in this case, it's to be able to craft clever content that's the real outcome, is not just this content donut, is for you guys to be able to craft your own content. And even in the future, if you just don't have the time or don't want to craft content, you know enough to be able to pass that on to someone who can do it for you. Or you've built a foundation enough that it doesn't, you could probably not do anything for a year and still have presence. And then the difference in the approach. What is your difference in approach? I started, once I really dialed down on my values and who I was as a person, or who I am as a person, I wanted to incorporate that into my style of marketing. And that is, like, I like unicorns and robots and donuts, and I like monkeys. I just like funny, silly things because that's me. Some people absolutely hate it, and like, you know what? Okay. Everything that I put up is still very, very relevant. I talk about donuts, but that's still part of the strategy that I have too, and I talk about that a bit later. I like unicorns. They might not exist, but you know what? I think that you're a unicorn, and that's your point of difference, which is your unique value proposition, is that you're a unicorn. What makes you different to the next person is your personality, right? So when you're looking at whatever content you have now, even if it's not up online, if it's not on a blog post, when you're actually reading it, does it sound like you? Does it sound like you're talking to one of your best friends? Or does it sound like something that you've written, like an essay that you've written in high school? Conversation is such a huge thing in social media, in your content. So think about all of the English rules, or whatever language you speak and understand, whatever you write in or whatever. Think of all those rules and just throw them away. Because people might pick at it, but then, hey, you know what? They might not. But if they see your personality coming through in the way you talk in your blog posts, it makes a huge difference. And so, yeah, your UVP. And that's why it's so important to talk to that one person. And so my intention for this workshop series is really to help you craft clever content, and actually later on get deeper into it. I know that I have to admit that there is a lot of fluff in a way, but it's so important to understand so that when we actually get into the doing of things, that you have that foundation. And my business goal, really right now, my business goal is to build a really small Zoom group of business owners, brands, influencers, in a regular Zoom call that I have, and not this one in particular, because I'm putting a group of people together from all over the world to just come together and meet regularly, whether it's once a month, whether it's a fortnight, and just be in a more collaborative environment rather than, like, if, for example, in this case, I'm kind of vomiting all the information in my brain so that you guys can try to understand it. But all this really is about you. And I feel like in this kind of like workshop setting, we can be interactive, but I want a space where people can really just talk a bit more and go one at a time and just focus on what you guys are having issues with or what you're working on. Because, Victor might be working on something, or maybe he has an issue that, Christine's like, yeah, I have the same problem. Maybe Lucy doesn't want to, mention about whatever challenge she's having. Maybe she forgot, or she just doesn't feel like it. But then Jacinta talks about the challenges that she is, and Lucy agrees, like that's, we're all going through the same problems in this place. And so, like, I'd really like to have, right now, a small group of 5 to 10 people to really start off the Zoom call, and just make it all about you. So the difference between an intention and a business goal is that an intention kind of gives you that direction of the area that you want to go to, and the business goal is very, very specific. So another example of a business goal could be, well, I want to build my list to 100 people in 30 days. Another business goal example can be, I want to increase my traffic by 50% to that specific blog post. So a business goal is very measurable. And so on that worksheet, there will be 2 squares, and feel free when you guys print it out or however you guys decide to edit the form, you can write on the other side. Feel free to just expand on these 2 content ideas. And so for this particular workshop, like my first content idea, well, was to have this workshop series to be able to help people craft clever content. And then my second content idea was to start writing a series of blog posts to really, if people can't always watch these, join these workshops, or maybe they would prefer reading, I want them to have another way of getting the information that's in my brain. Or maybe they just want to read a little bit and then come back to it and not necessarily have to always download a podcast or watch a video, because people take in information differently. Yeah, we're almost out of time here. So I think we're actually almost done. And I meant to write my content mission here, and I know I should have it memorized. But I mean, really my mission is to help you sound less like a robot and more like the unicorn you are. And that's really by helping you through teaching, tips, tutorials, and showing you the tools that I actually use. And so, for example, one of the tools that I use is a little microphone. And this is my travel microphone that I use for my podcasts. Another tool that I use is, what else can I show you? I mean, I have a tripod in front of me with a light. So if you guys ever wanted to do a webinar, and this probably won't apply to some of you because your business is quite different, I can tell you what, I'm using a ring light with LED lights. Lucy, for example, she wanted to shoot her products. So we looked up how to get one of those light boxes. So yeah, any way that I can help you guys from my experience, that's what I'm here for. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to do the other Zoom call and kind of have the, lessons, but also the kind of the offset of everyone else sharing what they're doing as well. I think it will create a really great balance. And I am a Libra and I like that balance. So, before we go, I know we've just got a few minutes here, but how are you guys doing? Are your brains kind of going all over the place? I'd love to hear if any of you picked up 1 to 2 things that you've never heard before, or that you think that will help you take the next step, even if you're not necessarily ready to write a blog post or whatever. Or not, that's okay too.
Yeah, you got. Oh, yeah. I can. Yeah, I liked what you just said before about not being a robot and teach, because that's definitely the area that I'm going into. So I've got to do that and do more of it. But I can do say that, we don't like listening to our own voice, but the more you do it, the better you get, just like what you're doing right now. Yeah. It's a bit nerve-wracking, as you know. Yeah. So, yeah, I certainly got that. I've got to go back in and download those slides to have a look at the last one, because I said, unfortunately, I missed some. So, yeah, I think that's important, doing that. And that as I said, and teaching. And what I have noticed, one thing, because I've been looking at a lot of blogs and posts and things, and I've noticed that a lot of people hide.
And so what are your thoughts about that?
I don't think it's good. I think, because you want it, when you want to be with someone or teaching, you want to see them. So a couple of things I've seen is that they hide, and so they just don't put up anything personal. They don't put up their picture. They don't speak in any of their posts. No videos. or if they do put up the video, it's not of them. And I don't particularly like that style.
And why is that? Why don't you like it?
Because you want to know. I want to know about the person. I want to work with people who I like, and I want to connect, see what they're like, talk to them. And that's the other thing. And I have found that a few people who have put up a workshop or something like that, and what they do is, again, they don't actually get connected with the group. So they start something, they sell it, they create a group, and then basically they back off.
Yeah.
And I think that's very annoying.
Mm. It's hard being consistent. I think that's a really great observation. And and I think that's part of the reason too I wanted to set up this Zoom group, is because we can all practice something together. Because I remember the first video that I did, it took me 2 hours to do a 2-minute video, and it was like I was pooping my pants.
Yeah.
It's scary. That's why people don't show their faces. But it's also really important to do because in the end, at least in my case, I don't know if you guys are the same, but I want to maximize the amount of time that I have with my child, my family, you know? And so by getting videos and posts out there with you in it, people get to know you without actually having to get to know you. So the idea, and I was talking to a lady today, I ran into her, she's in one of my networking groups, and she was saying, the people who are going on my website and asking for a free consultation are just kind of trolling through the Google. I want to be able to have, when I meet with someone, I want them to be closer to that buying decision. I want to know that they're qualified, at least enough to make a decision whether they're going to buy or not, rather than, just kind of looking around. And that's why I put out podcasts and do a lot of videos, is because by the time I actually have a conversation, and even with all of you here, you watching this, I know that you're here because you actually want the information, and I'm willing to work with you and open myself up and tell you everything that's going on in my brain so that you can benefit for it, because that means a lot to me. But if you're just trying to find things on the internet, I don't really want to give you the time of day, because I have information out there for you already, I mean, it's not that I don't want to give you the time of day, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you are clear, Regina. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone?
Hi, yes, I'd like to say something.
Hi.
First of all, thank you, Victor. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to what you were saying, and I'm like, OMG, this guy's talking about me. I'm one of those people that hides away. And even just now being on Zoom and looking at myself on the screen, it's just like, oh my God, everyone's looking at me. But since working with Regina, she's helped me a lot to move away from hiding and come out a little bit more to the point. I have posted a video of myself doing in one of my workshops, first time ever, and yeah, still working on it. It's like you said, it's a scary thing, and putting yourself out there in front of people. So I'm working on it.
Yeah, no, you're doing a really good job, and kind of forced the issue on you. But when we had the trade show that one day, you had the local news do interview you and took video of your setup at your at the exhibit, and I was making sure that I took pictures and video of them interviewing you, because when you put that on social media someday, or hopefully, people see that as an authority in a way, and I think that's really cool, because people need to know that actually your product is amazing and it's worth being on TV. So yeah, you deserve people having to get to know you. But it's scary too, so.
Yeah. The other thing I liked what you said is that stood out for me is, I am a unicorn. I am different. So I like that.
Yeah. And what's interesting about you, Lucy, is that every time I come into the shop, whether it's a work session or whether I'm getting an amazing massage, I always get a hug and a kiss on the cheek. Hi, how are you? It's a really heartfelt hug. And it's like, how can you emulate that in the digital space? Well, we'll get there. You're getting better.
That's my biggest challenge, is getting everything out of here and putting it out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And like I said, I know some of you really want to get into the how-tos, and I'm not going to get to that just yet, but I really do want to do it because I think it is quite important as well. But that foundation, like I know that Christine has a bleeping ton of content, but it's also understanding how you're going to structure that content and that story how strategic you're going to be laying that out so that the other person can actually read you internally and understand what you're trying to say, rather than vomiting all this stuff out. Because I've been there. I still do it. We get better every time. If anyone else have a takeaway? Okay, cool. So if any of you are actually interested in the VIP Zoom group, I have a survey that oh, someone coming out? I have a survey that asks you the best times for you. So if you're interested, then send me a message or let me know, and then I'll send you that link. I do want to keep it really small for now because I want to start building a strong group, but eventually, obviously, I want to grow. So great to see you. See you guys in 2 weeks when we talk about creating content. Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks, Regina.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Hey, Lucy, do you have a website with what your product? You were talking about your ointment.
Yes, it's.
You want to post it on the group or what are we doing on the email?
Yes.
How do I do that?
Oh, I can send it over.
Yeah.
Cool.
I also have a Facebook group if you guys want to come into it. You know, I'm just kind of starting it up now, but then that way we can all kind of converse with each other too. But let me know if you want to get added to that as well.
Cool.
Okay, bye guys.
Thank you. Bye.
See you. Bye. Bye.
Right, here we go. How do we turn this off?